So guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. We're going strong with the daily uploads at the moment, but what I thought we'd do for today's video is go through every championship club and I'll be ranking their oldest player from worst to best. What I found quite interesting about this concept was quite a lot of these players that are going to be on today's list, their contracts are expiring at the end of the season, so I'd be interested to get your guys' take on if you'd offer them a new contract or not. And I must stress this, I'm judging them off their playing ability like right now, so not how good they've been throughout their career or anything like that. I'm judging them based on how much value to the squad they had at the age that they currently are at. For each team, I've selected their oldest player based on someone who's actually played in the league this season. So if you've got like a third choice keeper who's like 50 years old, then I've not included them. But without any further ado, let's look at the tiers that we're going to be separating these players off into. So a player's either past it at this level, they're just not quite up to the standard anymore, does a job so that they do still offer something at this level, decent, which they're pretty good, very good, or elite. Let me know down below, players from your club who are like over the age of 30 or so, where would you put them into those brackets? But without any further ado, let's hop into it. Starting things out with Huddersfield Town's Danny Simpson. I believe his contract is expiring at the end of the season. Huddersfield picked him up as a free agent, obviously a Premier League winner with Leicester City. I think that when he initially came in around October time, he had a decent impact on the Huddersfield backline. He had a bit of experience, what they were lacking, and they did start to ship less goals. He's definitely not in his prime anymore, but he has added some sort of value to that backline. At times, he can be a little bit slow on the ball and to react to things, and he has had a couple of disaster classes here and there, but overall, I think he's had a more positive effect on this Huddersfield squad than negative, and I'm going to put him in decent. I think he's been alright since he's arrived at Huddersfield. Would you guys give him a new contract? Let me know down below. For Brentford, we go to Henrik Dalsgaard, only 30 years old, but the oldest player that's played for them in the league so far this season. Dalsgaard, actually really rate. I think he's gone under the radar a little bit as one of the most consistent fullbacks in the league this season. Obviously, with Brentford, we speak a lot about their attacking exploits, but at the start of the season, they had the best defensive record in the league, and Dalsgaard had a role in that. He's played at centre-back, right-back, and a little bit in midfield as well. I think he's really good at defending 1v1 situations, and he's also chipped in with a goal and 2 assists this season. I'm going to throw him into very good. I think he's been really good for them this season. For Blackburn Rovers, we go to Stuart Downing. Now, if I was basing this off his last season at Middlesbrough, I'd have been tempted to throw him into that past it pile, and when Blackburn picked him up, I wasn't too sure on the sign. I thought he'd had a bit of experience, but he probably wouldn't feature all too much for Blackburn, but he's totally proved me wrong, and he's ended up being one of their most consistent performers. I think with Bradley Dack picking up an injury, they've been more reliant on Downing's creativity than anything really, and he has been a brilliant creative outlet for them in terms of key passes, dictating the tempo and making things happen for them in the attacking third. Downing's been absolutely crucial. He's played a number of roles for them so far this season, and at 35 years old, 2 goals, 7 assists. I'm going to throw him into the very good category. I think he's been excellent for the Rovers. For Stoke City, we go to Adam Federici. Stoke's goalkeeper situation this season has been bizarre to say the least. You know, Jack Butland didn't start the season off well at all. Federici was then given the role. He's had 7 games in the Championship this season to show what he can do. He couldn't really do enough in that time to dislodge Butland as their number 1, and then Butland got the number 1 shirt back. So it's been a really rocky road for their goalkeepers this season. And Federici's been alright when he's played. I think he's kept 1 clean sheet in the Championship this season. I'm going to throw him into the does a job category. You know, he's a number 2. Charlie Adam for Reading is up next. 34 years old now. Charlie Adam was another signing. You can go back and watch the video when Reading signed him in the summer. I wasn't sure about this one either. In fact, I think I laughed at the signing at the time because I thought he was way past it. But for Reading this season, he's pretty much proved me wrong, to be honest with you. I think that when you play with a player like Charlie Adam, you do need to sort of accommodate him into the side because he's not going to go around and cover a whole lot of distance during the match. You know, you need to make sure the other 2 midfielders that are playing with him accommodate Adam into the midfield. But when you do that, he's still got that quality on the ball. And I hate to say it, but the game where Reading came to Deepdale this season, it was Charlie Adam who was absolutely pulling the strings and ran the show for them. When Reading are on top and their midfield are looking to play the ball around, I think he can still be a really effective player. I'm going to throw him into the decent category. He's proved me wrong this season. Sean Williams at Millwall, still going strong at the age of 33, still battling it out with Millwall, and has been an important part of their system so far this season. Whether they're playing that 4 or 3 at the back, him in defensive midfield really does hold it down quite well. He had something going forward as well. He's got 2 goals, 2 assists so far this season. He's got the 2nd best tackle rate in that Millwall squad so far this season, averaging 2 tackles per 90. And considering the role he played, he's not actually, and considering the role And considering the role he plays, he's not actually been booked that much this season. He's only been booked 3 times. So I think he's a wise old head for Millwall. I'm going to throw him into very good as well. I think he's been good for them. Martin Croney for Luton, 33 years old. He's been alright for them so far this season. He's played pretty much everywhere across the back line and in midfield as well. He's got 2 goals and an assist. Obviously, defensively, we make no secret about it. You know, Luton have been quite leaky at the back so far this season. And his performances have been a little bit hit and miss. I remember before the break, actually, he put in a series of decent performances as Luton were keeping things a lot tighter at the back. Based off the whole season so far, I'd put him in the sort of does the job category. I think I put him around there. Ashley Williams for Bristol City, 35 years old. I remember towards the end of his career at Everton, everyone thought that was sort of the end and that Ashley Williams was really past it there. But in the Championship of Bristol City has really rejuvenated his career, to be fair to him. Is there an argument to say that he's maybe been Bristol City's best centre-back so far this season? I'd probably say Baker has been their best, but with Thomas Callas out injured, Williams has played a lot of football for them this season, 28 appearances. And barring the odd sort of disaster class here and there, you know, he was sent off in the Brentford game, wasn't he? I think he's been really good for them so far this season. I'm going to chuck him into that very good category. David Marshall comes in next for Wigan Athletic, 35 years old. He's had quite the interesting season. I think that he started out a little bit dodgy. He got dropped around Christmas time for Jamie Jones, but then since coming back into the squad, and lately especially, has actually been a really important player for Wigan. That he made one absolutely outrageous save in the game they had against Reading away. He made a triple save, which was just absolutely outrageous. One of the best pieces of goalkeeping we've seen so far this season. Marshall's an interesting one. I think he's a good shot stopper. At times, struggles a little bit with like crosses coming into the box and things like that. And although he's not at his best anymore, I'd still throw him into that decent category. I don't mind Marshall as a goalkeeper. Next up, and for West Brom, I think we got to have the oldest player on this list. 39 years old, Gareth Barry. The most Premier League appearances of all time. I don't think that in terms of his career in general, Barry doesn't sometimes get the recognition he deserves. He's been an absolutely brilliant player. But nowadays, where would I rank him amongst this list? I think that, to be fair to Barry, last season he actually featured a lot more than I thought he would, and he was actually a decent sort of bit part player for West Brom last season. This time round, however, it's been a bit more of a struggle for him. He's only had 1 start in the league and then 2 appearances off the bench and a few appearances in the FA Cup. In that time, and from what I've seen of him, I think the legs have gone there for Gareth Barry, and obviously when you're in that position of defensive midfield, as soon as your legs go, you do get overrun a little bit. I think we saw that in the game they had against Newcastle in the FA Cup especially. I'd probably throw him into that past it category. West Brom fans, let me know down below what do you think of Gareth Barry right now? Fulham, we go to 32-year-old Tim Ream. I think that since Hector's come in, Tim Ream's performances have really gone up. I think that those two have complemented each other fairly well so far this season. I think that on the ball, Ream definitely offers something. He's quite composed and is able to play out from the back, and obviously that's quite important for the way that Fulham have played so far this season. Defensively, I don't know really, a little bit hit and miss I'd say, but compared to sort of everyone else on this list, I'm going to throw him into the decent category. Angel Rangel for QPR's up next, 37 years old and still going strong in the Championship, is a testament to the absolute fabulous career that he's had and the longevity that he's shown these days. And for QPR, I'd say he's a pretty consistent performer, to be honest with you. He's had 18 starts in the league so far this season, and with a player like Rangel at right back, you know what you're going to get from him. You know, he may not be as fast as he once was, but the intelligence is very much still there. For Rangel, I'm also going to throw him into that decent category. I think he's been alright for QPR this season. I'd be interested to know from you guys if you give him a contract extension. Wayne Rutledge for Swansea City, 35 years old. He's an interesting one. He's not featured all too much so far this season, but to be fair to him, he has come up with some pretty big moments for Swansea. He assisted the goal for the winner they scored against Cardiff. He scored the winner for them at Ellen Road earlier on this season. I'm tempted to throw him into the does a job category, but because he's come up with a few clutch moments for Swansea this season, I'll still throw him into that decent pile. Eric Lehigh for Hull City, 31 years old. He's going to be another returning player that they're going to have when the football does resume. Lehigh's an interesting one. I think that going forward perhaps doesn't really offer too much, but defensively I think he's fairly solid in the Championship. I think his presence and hopefully leadership for Hull's going to have an impact on when they do get back into things. I've just got one game imprinted in my mind of Eric Lehigh so far this season, and it's probably unfair that it is this game, but it's when Brentford absolutely ran through them, beat them 5-1 at home. I think Ben Rama got a hat-trick that day. I don't think he's a bad defender. He's a solid person who does his job, really. I'm going to throw him into that category, I think. Then we get to Aidan McGeady of Charlton Athletic, 34 years old. Charlton have had a few issues with, you know, players refusing to play. McGeady's not been one of them, and he could end up being quite crucial in their survival this season, but I've not really seen anything from him so far, and to be fair, he's not really had much of a chance to do so. He's only had 3 games for Charlton so far this season, but is he still up to this level of football? That's my question. Obviously, he spent a couple of seasons in League One now with Sunderland. Obviously, going off his time at Preston, I'd probably say that he's the best player I've seen at North End in my lifetime. He was just absolute magic in the bottle. McGeady, it's up to him to prove me wrong for the rest of this season, but for the time being, I'm going to throw him into the past it category, I think. He could end up being massive for Charlton for the rest of this season. If he is, then I'll go back to this video and I'll change it. But for the time being, I'm not too sure with McGeady anymore. And then we go to the absolute icon that is Lee Camp at Birmingham. I think that this guy's got to split the Birmingham fan base. The amount of, you know, back and forth stuff I see on Twitter of people rating Lee Camp and not rating Lee Camp is absolutely off the scales. So I'm looking forward to football coming back. And Lee Camp is such an odd footballer to judge, really. There's always a sense of unpredictability when you're watching Lee Camp in goal, and I think that that's where some of the excitement comes from, really. He can either, like I say, pull off an absolute masterclass or a disaster class. You never know what you're going to get. It's the flip of a coin, really. Considering all the issues they've had over the years, you know, restrictions on signing players and things like that, I think he does a job for Birmingham, doesn't he? Paul Gallagher for North End, 35 years old. What a player he's been for us this season, and throughout the years, definitely. The way that Gallagher's been able to develop his game over the years, you know, he's played as a striker, then as a winger, then as a number 10, and now he's playing more as a holding midfielder, someone who likes to sit back and dictate the play, and he has done exactly that for North End so far this season. He averages 1.4 key passes per match, which is more than anyone else in the North End squad, and his link up and partnership with Ben Pearson is just absolutely fantastic. The chemistry that those two have between each other is absolutely brilliant. I think it will be a very sad day around North End when Gally does decide to hang his boots up, because for the time being, I'm throwing him in very good. He's been crucial for us. Nugent's another one for North End who's getting up there. He's 35 as well. Where would I throw Nugent into this list? He's only scored once for us so far this season. He's had 10 starts and 11 appearances from the bench, but Nugent, I'd say that, you know, our strikers haven't been great so far this season, and Nugent, I think he does a job for us. There's been a few occasions where he's come off the bench and added a bit of quality into our forward line. His touch is still very good. He links up well with us around him as well. Stoke away was one particular game where I thought he made a real difference where he came on. Next we go to Kieran Westwood at Sheffield Wednesday, 35 years old. I think there's a valid argument to be made that over the last decade he's been one of the best, if not the best, keepers in the Championship over that term. These days though, and over the past couple of seasons, we don't quite get to see as much of him. He started out the season really well for Sheffield Wednesday, I thought, had some really good games to them. That goalless draw against Leeds, he was absolutely superb. But then he had a few performances where he dropped off a little bit, was ultimately benched, and then we've not really seen him since, have we? I think Gary Monk has recently said that he's been injured. I'm going to throw him into decent for the time being because we don't really get to see all too much of him nowadays. Michael Solbauer at Barnsley arrived in January, the 30-year-old Austrian centre-back. I'd put him into that decent category as well, actually. I think since he's come in, he's probably been Barnsley's best defender, assured them up at the back a little bit more. I think he was a decent acquisition for them in January. Next we go to Cardiff City, absolute icon Sol Bamba. He's been coming back from an injury this season, so we've not really seen all too much of him, but last season in the Premier League I thought he was really good for Cardiff. Obviously we all remember the infamous Neil Warnock quote back in 2017 saying that Sol Bamba is a better defender than Virgil van Dijk. And like I say, because we've not really seen Bamba all too much so far this season, I'm mostly judging it off last season, and from his time in the Premier League I've thrown him into very good. Judge Friend for Middlesbrough, 32 years old, quite a diverse player, can either play at left back or at centre half. Not played as much so far this season due to injuries, but when he has played, I think he's a valuable member of that back line. Obviously throughout the years for Middlesbrough he's been an absolute warrior for them, a great signing overall. Obviously likes to be quite a physical defender, and I still think that at the age he is, he's still, you know, a competent, good, solid Championship defender, so I'd throw him into the decent pile, I think. I think the same about Nottingham Forest Michael Dawson as well, 36 years old but still going strong in the Championship. I think that at times, you know, he could be exploited for his lack of pace here or there if he's left exposed, but when he has played for Forest this season, he's been a really solid performer for them, and injuries have caught up with him slightly. He's made 14 appearances so far this season for Forest, but on the whole, when he has been in the side, they've been good at the back. You know, him and Worrell seem to have a good partnership between themselves, so I'd throw probably him into the decent pile as well. Derby County, we got Curtis Davis at the age of 35. I think Curtis Davis is a really likeable person. I think he's a decent pundit as well when he appears on the EFL show, but as a defender, I mean, he's not quite what he once was, and I think that his lack of pace sometimes can get exposed, and I think that in teams like Forest where they've accommodated for Dawson quite well, Derby perhaps haven't always done that with Davis. I still think he does a job for Derby, to be fair to him. Just probably not quite what he once was. And he's probably played a lot more football this season than he would have probably thought he would have. And then finishing things off with Leeds United's Pablo Hernandez, also 35 years old, but still very much going strong. It's been a shame about the injuries this season, which have kept him out of action for a little bit, but still going well with the goals and assists. 6 goals, 6 assists in 25 starts for Leeds so far this season. He averages 2.3 key passes per game. In context, in the Championship, only Mateus Pereira and John Swift at Reading average more than that. And he is just still a wonderfully gifted player, you know. One of the final games we had before the break in the season was when Leeds beat Hull by 4-0. Pablo was absolutely centre to that performance. I think that had he not missed so much of the season so far, he'd still be in that conversation as one of the best in the Championship, and that's a testament to him at 35 years old. So for Pablo Hernandez, I think he is probably a level above everyone else we've spoken about in this video. So Pablo Hernandez gets himself into that elite tier. So guys, as you can see on screen now, there are my rankings for every Championship club's oldest player. So what do you make of them? Who would you change? Let me know in the comments down below. But apart from that, that will now wrap it up for today's video, guys. So if you did come to enjoy, please do leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. And make sure to subscribe for some regular Championship content if you are enjoying the regular uploads. But apart from that, guys, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.